Portland. Sorry about that. I was more than sure she was going to do something, but let's just go ahead and get this fixed as well, and... there, I think. Wait. Oh, come on! I was working on this for so long! This is gonna set me back so many hours! Are you actually— I gotta watch this whole thing and make sure there's nothing else she put in here for all I know. I hope I don't forget anything. Alright, so it's obvious that since we've worked with Portland, it's kind of worth spending some time to talk about her little sister, USS Indianapolis. Now, Indianapolis is another ship in the Eagle's heavy cruiser roster. However, unlike her sister, she is already at the elite rarity rather than being in the rare rarity. The one thing they do have in common is their build time though, but it's more likely that you'll be seeing Portland out of that timer than Indianapolis herself. Nonetheless, does Indianapolis live up to the reputation and fame that Portland gives her? Well, it's time to find out. But first, let me make sure of something real quick. There, she can't get in now. Anyway, looking at her survival stats, we see Indianapolis has a rather large health pool when compared to others within her rarity. She even beats both of the Deutschland class in HP and is close to Hipper in terms of that as well. Her armor type is medium, so while she'll be able to take a decent beating, she's still very vulnerable to heavy cruiser AP as well as battleship AP guns, so it's best to make sure to exercise some caution against those particular enemies. Her evasion seems about average compared to many of her counterparts, so she'll just be as likely to dodge as any of the other elite heavy cruisers. Lastly, her anti-air seems well into the high end, so she'll do decently well at air control as well as taking less damage from air-based attacks. The difference between her counterparts and her is enough of one to be noticeable, but it's not like a crazy difference. Now, on the offense side of things, her firepower is very low, losing to Sakura Empire cruisers even. This means that her overall gun damage won't be as high as, pretty much almost everybody. She's a gunboat, so she has no torpedo capability, but instead gains an additional main gun mount on her second limit break. Lastly, her reload feels about average, so her overall fire rate combined with her low firepower means she won't be as effective as her counterparts when it comes to her guns. Speaking of guns, her main gun carries a 110% efficiency at best, which is below average compared to her counterparts. Her secondary gun efficiency sits at about the average of 60%. This only further pushes the idea that she's not going to do well with surface damage, at least compared to a lot of her counterparts. Now, her AA gun efficiency does seem a bit on the higher end at 130%, so this will just continue to reaffirm that she'll do very well when it comes to anti-air control thanks to her higher anti-air stat and the decent efficiency with her gun. As we can kinda see already, she's built more for survival at the expense of offense capability. Now, I'm not always the best when it comes to naming things, but I think I'm going to call this the Prince Eugen effect. While Indianapolis may not be as tanky as Prince Eugen, she still pays for a lot of that health with her firepower. Now, this type of situation can be helpful, but in most cases it works against a player. The Mothleads need the damage to quickly clear enemies, which you could argue is for better damage mitigation. And I've also always believed that it is better to out-DPS a boss than it is to out-tank it. So, survival isn't usually the best option in, well, pretty much every case. This is further reinforced when we look at her stats at level 120. She does get a decent boost to firepower in the long run, but she's still leagues away from allowing her to out-DPS her counterparts. Her other stats all do see some jumps, but they remain about where they were in comparison to her rivals. Now, we have mentioned before that skills can make a difference in Azur lane, so it's time we give those a look and see just how true that holds for her. Indianapolis' first skill is Pandora's Box, which spawns 2 rotating shields that block up to 8 shots. These shields do last about up to 15 seconds and will explode and deal a small amount of damage to nearby enemies. This skill is guaranteed to proc every 30 seconds as well. Now, I will say shield skills honestly are kind of hit or miss. No pun intended. Some of them can be very reliable, while others are more of, well, why? Why do you exist? Why are you like this? Unfortunately, with the shields rotating, there's a good chance that the shots that need to be blocked won't be blocked, and will still end up hitting Indianapolis. Honestly, there's a better chance that they'll end up absorbing the shots that were no threat to you in the first place, especially if you play on manual and are pretty decent when it comes to dodging attacks. Now this can also lead to another problem, where the shields will just blow up around nothing and waste the damage from the shield getting destroyed. The long downtime between each skill proc might cause this skill to occur maybe once, or well, not even once at all. It just depends on how good your comp is at taking out the rest of the enemies on screen. In the long run, this skill really is not that great. Most of the shield skills kind of fall into this category, which is kind of sad, but there's not a whole lot of good I can really speak on for this particular skill. Now, Indianapolis' second skill is Vice Defense, which can decrease damage taken by 50%. This sounds like an amazing skill until you realize that it's procced by taking damage and also carries a terrible 8% chance at best to proc. I know people do generally joke that I'm a pretty lucky person, but I honestly would rather not place my bets on this particular skill procking. Sure, it'll be nice when it does work out in favor, as that damage reduction can be pretty huge, especially if it procs from a battleship AP shot. It could make a character pretty tanky to have that skill with them, and of course the luck is in their favor. But to be completely honest, I'd rather push my luck with getting a Sandy in the light build pool at this point. Look, I need more, okay? Don't judge me. Overall, Indianapolis suffers greatly from the Prinz Eugen effect in both her stat line and in her skills. This makes her not a very solid pick for most things, since she easily falls victim to the "there are better ships for her" spot argument. Now, survival is a bit of a situational thing, and even then, Prinz Eugen does that job much better than Indianapolis in both damage and survival capabilities. It's honestly kind of sad that it's hard to justify her for pretty much every situation. I will say that if you are starting out fresh, and you have her but not Eugen, then she'll be a decent front tank until you start to get into stronger heavy cruisers, or you manage to get your hands on Eugen. Now, if I had to pick between Mob or Boss Fleet Vanguard, I'd say put her in the Mob Fleet. Mob Fleets can be more forgiving with a weaker Vanguard, as your backline can easily carry her. Indianapolis, being the front line's front tank, can help your more fragile Vanguard stay alive though, so there's at least one thing that she's pretty reliable for in that case. However, don't be surprised when she starts to plateau quickly. I'm not fond of guides pointing out more negatives of a character than positives, but unfortunately that's just the way Indianapolis is. I know Portland won't be happy about it, but what else can I say? Anyway... How did you get in here?
Indy.
No! Anyway, that is going to be it for USS Indianapolis. Hope you did enjoy the video for what it was, and that it will help you in your future endeavors. Up next is the mighty Pennsylvania, and later her sister, Arizona. So look forward to those sisters getting their time soon. Until then, whether you're a regular viewer or a patron supporting the channel on Patreon, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all again real soon.